we're already having the conversation that is we are diving into the budget cuts, and that's what I want to rope you in. Earlier on, I told you 100 billion Kenyan shillings is what Ukuri Yatani is hoping to save. 600 billion Kenyan shillings is our deficit fund, simply meaning we're living beyond our means as a country. It is simply that simple. But I want to bring your attention on what's on the Standard newspaper, because it is a follow-up of this conversation we are having. In case you want to grab your paper, page 8, budget cuts hit MPs, judges and governors. Of course, I told you that these budget cuts will affect ministries, parastatals, as well as state departments. What's on page 8 is just a breakdown, or should I say an overview, a dummy of the 2020-21 budget allocation. I'll give you three, from what I'm seeing, three of the big parastatals. Education will get 507 billion. Please note this is just the dummy budget. Education will get 507 billion. Energy and infrastructure and ICT with the second biggest allocation with 404 billion. Public administration and international relations, 259 billion. The Standard is saying, is referring to it as a showdown that will be looming between the executive and all these other administrations. The executive has been allocated 1.8 trillion, or will be allocated once this is passed. Of course, a slash of about 133 billion. Another institution that obviously will be affected is Judiciary. Honorable Sholei, here's the thing.
Okay, first of all, let me correct something. Budget, the Treasury CS has no power to allocate budget. The power to allocate budget is vested in the National Assembly. So let us correct that first. So there is nothing he does. What he does is he prepares proposals. It goes to sector hearings, which is ongoing at the moment. And then each of the sectors will go to the relevant committees in Parliament and make their case. So the decision of where to cut, increase budget, lies with the National Assembly. So the media should stop misleading Kenyans. This is not accurate. This is inaccurate. Is it somebody in the media doesn't know how government works? Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you must admit that this will affect the relationship, the already straining relationship between executive and judiciary.
Yes, but you see what will happen is, because every time the judiciary will appear before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, and they will make their case. If they are able to explain their case, then what will happen is that whatever suggestions were made by the minister can be changed. But also, the judiciary has the capacity to earn revenue for this country.
The judiciary alone?
Judiciary alone. I remember very clearly when I was at the judiciary, we launched what we call Faini Chap Chap, you know, and people are paying by M-Pesa their fines. The revenue increased from 50,000 to millions of shillings per day, because what usually happens is sometimes the fines, because of corruption and all, the fines don't necessarily come to government. But if we can do better money collection system, like M-Pesa, no one can bribe when you've got to send it directly. So those are changes that can be made. I know that if the judiciary is assisted to collect their fines and revenue in a more transparent and very legitimate manner, they can actually raise it.
So where has the judiciary leadership?
And when they raise that issue before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, their salary, their money will be increased. And I know one thing, that I know that parliamentarians are very disappointed with the fact that the judiciary is not able to operate as fast as it wants it to operate. So let me tell you something. I don't think I don't think the parliament is going to agree to cut down the budget. But doesn't judiciary know exactly what you've explained to Kenyans, that if they want to, they could independently do certain things to fund themselves and just add to what it is the government has given them. So why hasn't Maraga and top leadership in judiciary done so? I don't know. I haven't been following it, but I know that when I was at the judiciary, within the year, we got an award for raising the highest revenue. I was recognized by KRA. So it is possible. So the judiciary should make sure that it collects more revenue. The revenue is then given to Kenya Revenue Authority. But if you are raising a lot of revenue, it's easy to argue that you should get more budget allocated to you. So it is possible.
Senator, what I'm also hearing from this discussion is that, because we have these discussions a lot throughout the week, at the end of the day, given our history, and let's say 2019, let's not even go too far, how funding affects corruption, and at the speed at which corruption cases are heard. With this coming, should just Kenyans prepare for more of this discussion and of there's no possibility, or it will be a bit far-fetched until we can see people who are convicted for economic crimes in Kenya?
This issue of fighting
can you allow me to say something on that? Let me not lose it.
Okay.
But let me just, I think what you must realize is the whole strategy of fighting corruption, it does not just lie in the judiciary alone. It also lies with the DPP. So when the DPP charges somebody and puts 40 witnesses, that case will not be completed for 20 years. If you look at, then you look at a case where he's charging 23 people in one case. Again, that is how not to finish a corruption case. Because if these 23 people, let's assume they even share lawyers, let's assume there are 10 lawyers. To get 10 lawyers available on a specific date, all of them at one spot, is an impossibility.
Okay.
So we need the DPP to be more strategic in the way you deal with the cases. And the way you deal with it, we have already passed a law in Kenya, the plea bargaining law. What the DPP can be doing is saying, take some people who are also being charged, but tell them, I want you to be witnesses.
Okay, here's the thing, Honorable Shelley.
The DPP is so unstrategic in the manner in which he's charging people.
Okay, as I'm coming back to you, Senator, just to pick up from what she's saying. At the end of the day, she has her point. You know, you can have so many witnesses. We've seen how that has dragged cases in Kenya. But at the end of the day, this same funding is what affects mobile courts. I don't think DPP affects mobile courts. DPP doesn't affect the employment of judges. And there is a gap in leadership, in a gap rather in employment in judiciary. DPP has nothing to do with that. It's all funding.
No, that's true. And also within the intention of the judiciary, of course, to expand infrastructure. Now we know there are courts now that have, stalled, and those are in the rural areas and, in the more remote areas where they wanted to bring justice closer to people. Now we know those ones are going to stall.
So should Kenyans get used to a more slow-wheeling judiciary?
Well, I know I'm sure from what the Chief Justice said, then there's, of course, that is expected. But there are also many other ways of seeking justice. Now, besides the corruption issue, other ways of seeking justice are also present, and Kenyans need to know you can seek alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to sort out your issues. You don't always have to go to court, and these are available. I think there are quite a number of institutions now that have been coming out there. The Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, for instance,
mediation,
where I serve there in the committee here, the local one. We have mediators, arbitrators, we have conciliators. So Kenyans also need to be aware there are many other ways of seeking justice for their issues. But when it comes to the criminal and the corruption cases, I think the CJ needs to sit with the president and the DPP. Because in my opinion, especially when it comes to the judges, I believe we should drop the threshold of corruption cases in the judiciary, because we need some convictions. And if we had convictions of economic crimes and corruption, would begin to sort out our budget issues, I believe. If you listen to some economists I've seen on social media talking about budgeted corruption, because now in our new constitution, we have all checks and balances to take care of Kenyan money, isn't it? We have the controller of budget, we have the auditor general, we have people, Kenyans these days participate in the budget making process. We have county assemblies that are checking budgets. We have National Assembly. Then you still find huge sums of money are still being stolen. So you hear the conversation of budgeted corruption coming up from economists, where even the cost of a road that is being done, we always wonder why our roads are so expensive to construct, is because the corruption has already been budgeted from the word go. So it is difficult to catch these people, but they're there. So how do we deal with this unless we start pinning down people and we have some convictions?
Senator, I hear you, but Speaker, here's the thing. As much as we have the term budget corruption, Speaker, at the end of the day, corruption is not what is forcing us as Kenyans to live beyond our means.
Well, I would say it can, because...
it might influence, but it's not why we're living beyond our means.
That's what I wanted. It influences how you live. And the worst is not just influence. Because if indeed we decided, for example, she worked in the judiciary for the term she was in, when you look at everything Honorable Shelley did in that period, it means it can happen anywhere. In this country called Kenya, it depends with the individual who takes the position.
Okay.
If you want to transform, you will.
Yes.
And you will transform with the little they have given you. Let me tell you, you will transform. Because there are many ways of working, especially with the judiciary. If there's an institution that has goodwill, not just from the government, but from many other quarters, it's the judiciary. Now, ask yourself, during Mutunga's time, look at how, with all the marquis he was in, but he tried and brought in very serious reforms. Now, I believe my Chief Justice also, there was a way he had believed he will bring in reforms. To bring in those reforms, you must go back to the powerful people, the registrars, to bring in reforms. And even to change the way we do things, it's the registrars. They will decide, because they are the ones who decide, this case will go to Judge Mumbi. This one, they are the ones. They are very powerful. Therefore, they can decide and even have their own conference with the DPP and say, no, as we move in and we are taking this to our judges, we feel you're going to drag this thing yourself, and don't blame the judiciary. And it is time they have to sit together and ask themselves, especially in the anti-corruption cases, do we really need to send everyone to court? Okay. Or can we just internally create our framework and say, this one is a matter of just looking, your salary was 50,000. You have gotten this. No.
Vivian, I'm coming. Here's the thing, Speaker.
Let me just finish. We are deciding as a team, this is how we are dealing with this case. We are leaving you with this because we know this has to be with you. This is not yours. It's for Kenyans. Tell us yes or no. Okay. You want to say yes, we leave you, you go.
Okay, Speaker, here's the thing. Vivian, I'm coming to you. Speaker, at the end of the day, the austerity measures that we've seen Ukuri Yatani taking from his predecessor and sort of following with it, what though would you want to see him addressing as officially now the CS of Treasury? He was just, at first it was just acting capacity.
Yes. And I think he has, one thing I would say about CS Yatani, he has goodwill to see us change in how we have been doing things. I'm hoping that goodwill will go to Parliament and we will not find ourselves dragged in the politics, so that you understand, indeed, Kenya, we must go through these measures.
All right.
But then the other thing we need to say is that he has clear proposals. One of the things I'll agree with him, why would we give you money to just stay in your account? For what? Why? If you're not spending it at that time, and you know very well, revenue is collected and then we spend. So why would you have money just in an account, 2 billion? It is just sitting there. But Kenyans need it to move somewhere.
Right.
What Yatani is trying to say, fine, you can have your budget. Why? For the first time, he's trying to push us. Can you itemize your budget? Okay. Can you tell us, this year, we will buy the glass, we will have 100 foreign trips, we'll have, can you explain on paper so that even if you want 33 billion, we can see 33 billion will be spent.
Okay, honesty and transparency.
Yes.
Vivian, even as you're giving us your own thoughts on this, I want to direct one specific one to you, which is what's on the Daily Nation. Uhuru secures 170 billion investment deals. This is, of course, with the summit between UK and Africa. For those who are watching, let me just read for you what it says. Pact sealed to ongoing UK-Africa Investment Summit in London as Kenya's first ever green bond listed on the London Stock Exchange. Very good. 170 billion Kenyan shillings is what Uhuru has secured. And this money, Kenya will be benefiting rather from a 3.9 billion investment in affordable energy and efficient housing. This is just in summary of some of the goodies that President Uhuru Kenyatta has gone to collect in UK. The UK government has also announced that it plans to finance a range of infrastructure projects across Africa, including Kenya, that are attractive to businesses and investors. Here's the thing, Vivian, these headlines, we see them all the time. Kenya and Nairobi is very notorious, especially under Jubilee's administration, for hosting the likes of UNCTAD, etc., which are fantastic when you have this organization.
Did you just say notorious?
Yes. I mean, if there's one administration that has hosted a lot of these trade
which
events,
is a good thing.
No, it's a good thing. Notorious in the sense that it's quite common in Uhuru's administration. UNCTAD happened under his watch, under CS Foreign Affairs then.
I wish you withdraw the word notorious.
All right, maybe not so notorious.
I think it's because we fail to see like the immediate benefits.
And
he has brought all the benefits. It is the lack of the team They don't understand.
Let's hear from Vivian. Here's the thing, Vivian. Is Jubilee's administration telling Kenyans that it's still okay for us to, borrow and go about these other things?
Did you just borrow?
Okay, this is not boring, but it's an investment deal between UK and Africa. We've seen a lot of this happening even with other countries, but on the ground, vitu kwa ground is what I'm trying to say. Are different, Vivian, right? Whether it is borrowing or whether it's a partnership with another country in this summit, we've seen a lot of these things happening. They're not translating to projects.
We welcome partnerships. We welcome partnerships because we want to see development. But the thing we will say and keep saying is, we need to bring this corruption issue to an end, because this is what's affecting everything in Kenya. Right now, we're talking about 100% transition of from class 8 into Form 1. Yes. And parents are struggling. A lot of parents are struggling to get their kids to school. Some cannot afford uniform. And it's everywhere. It's not just Nairobi. You see it in Uasin Gishu, you see it in Turkana, like in almost every county. And what is the root cause of this? It's the economy.
So are these projects worth it? As long as they sound so good to the years.
If we will not be able to balance our investments, our borrowing, our revenue, and with austerity measures and do away with corruption, it will be a continuous cycle. We will keep going through the same cycle over and over again. And that's why I think the government, especially DCI and Judiciary is an important cog in this thing. They need to work together to make sure that we see corruption convictions. We need to see, money that was acquired illegally and corruptly taken back by the government and put back into the economy, because essentially when the money was paid out, it was supposed to help a Kenyan somewhere. You see, at the end of the day, governance we will judge it based on service delivery. So if we're not getting healthcare, if we're not getting basic things like education, if you cannot take your kids to school, you cannot put food on the table, you cannot pay your rent or house your family, then what are you doing?
So
it's
all this
no
borrowing,
wonder we have all these cases of mental health and suicides.
All this borrowing that we've been doing, is it worth it?
I would say it will not be worth it if we cannot put it to good use.
Right.
Yes.
All right. And we need to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, ladies, we'll be talking
Before
about
we go for that commercial.
Okay. Speaker.
No, not in a bad way.
Okay.
I was just saying, look at the women reps. They're given 7 million per constituency. Go and look at the work they have done. That is where they have given us the biggest challenge. If we want to learn some of these lessons, that we can use the little you have to transform. Look at the projects the women reps have done vis-a-vis what CDF does. Only CDF is like, for the last 20 years we've given them classrooms, and we are still crying classrooms.
We need to have more sustainable developmental projects.
They need to change that policy and relook also on
just about the investment.
We need to pay bills. Can we come back with that? Okay, fine. We'll come back. I promise you we'll come. Yeah, let's pay bills and come back with your point. And when we come back, apart from what the senator will be saying, we'll be talking about BBI. I'd love to hear from the ladies about BBI. Did any of you guys go to Okay, I know. Were you in Speaker? We'll be back.